So I'm an integrative dietitian, and I help women make menopause their bitch in a nutshell.
Welcome to the show where we help you make smart nutrition simple. If you want proven nutrition strategies to help you build a better body and create the energy to show up for your family without overly restrictive and unrealistic dieting, then you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and enjoy this episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. I am your host, as always, Ben Brown, owner and head coach here at Body Systems. Today on the show, I'm excited to welcome back my good friend Esther Blum. Esther is an integrative dietitian and menopause expert who's helped thousands of women master menopause through nutrition, through hormones, and through self-advocacy. She is the best-selling author of See You Later, Ovulator, of Cavewomen Don't Get Fat, Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous, Secrets of Gorgeous, and the Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous Project. Known as Gwyneth Paltrow's menopause mentor, and by Forbes for helping women thrive through menopause, Esther was also voted Best Nutritionist by Manhattan Magazine. She has appeared on The Today Show, ABC, Good Day New York, and is frequently quoted in Goop, Well Plus Good, Forbes, and many, many others. In today's conversation, we dive deep into all things menopause and perimenopause, the significant gap in healthcare that leaves many women underserved, and the crucial role of hormone replacement therapy. Esther shares her expert insights on how hormonal imbalances affect everything from sleep patterns to mood swings to brain fog and weight gain, and offers practical advice on managing those symptoms through diet, exercise, and proper hormonal management. We also talk about the need for education about menopause for both men and women to foster better understanding and support, and the role of carbs in managing cortisol levels and overall hormonal balance, and why women need to prioritize themselves over focusing so much on everyone else. So this was a fantastic conversation that will provide you with a ton of value and give you the information you need to get, as Esther calls it, exquisite meno care. So without further ado, let's dive in. Here is Esther Blum. Esther Blum, welcome back to the Smart Nutrition Made Simple show. How are you? It's great to see you again.
It is so good to see you again, Ben.
So first of all, I interviewed you as one of my first, I think, interviewees in 2017. Do you remember what happened on the podcast?
I have no recollection other than a great time. But
yeah, no. It was a good conversation, but we were like 15 minutes in and I'd forgot to hit record. So I was so embarrassed. It's recording. We are good to go. Thank you for being here. I'm super excited to just chop it up again with you, find out more about, what you've been up to. I have been on a tear kind of talking a lot of men's health lately in our community. And while I personally serve a lot of men, within our community, we serve a lot of women. And which case I didn't want them to feel neglected, and who better to bring on the show than you. So Esther, for those that aren't familiar with you, really briefly, like, who are you? What do you do?
So I'm an integrative dietitian, and I help women make menopause their bitch in a nutshell. So I have a practice of midlife women who have been horribly gaslit, who have had absolute crap menopause care. And I don't care if you are an A-list celebrity or an everyday human just trying to get through, a night of hot flashes and, irritability and mood swings and weight gain. And, there is no differentiation between the absolute crap level of care and how women are completely underserved. There are going to be 1 billion women in menopause by 2030. And of that, only 4% are on hormones. And
Wow.
I would imagine it's even less getting good medical care. There's a massive gap between what people are taught in medical school and the fact that there are already FDA approved hormones that have been out for ages. Doctors aren't prescribing them. And so, I'm often the bridge, the liaison to
Yeah.
help women get exquisite menocare because, and really for the men who are listening, if you think this isn't for you, trust
Right.
me, this is for you because women aren't educated on what's happening to their bodies. So of course you're not going to be educated either. So men and women, I mean, listen, I couldn't tell you much about a prostate exam, okay, other than I know what happens. Like I'm not fully educated on man's body either. We all need to learn both sides. So
No,
yes, I help.
100%. I was about to say that actually for the guys
Yeah.
listening, like don't shut it off because one of the best things you can do in my experience is be in the know around your spouse's symptoms,
Yeah.
so that you can speak intelligibly to them so that you can effectively support them because so much about our health, longevity, productivity, and progress comes from an adequate support system. So don't just tune
Yeah.
it out because it's not relevant to you. It is relevant to you and your relationship. Trust me, it's very relevant to
It
understand
is.
this stuff and be sympathetic and empathetic. Well, mostly sympathetic if and where necessary. So it sounds like, over the past several years, that's really been a massive transition for you. I imagine it has a lot to do with your journey, your personal journey of going through menopause. But, I think, I recall years ago when we spoke and in some of your previous books, we talked a lot about paleo diet and eating and training, just generally speaking, kind of what have been the big shifts for you over the past, and now it's been, 6 years, so almost seven
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is too, I will say, since I worked in hospitals the first 5 years of my career, but since I opened my private practice, there were two women to come in. One was a psychotherapist who was going through menopause and had the menopause and like wanted the 10 pounds off. And the other was like a young woman, a 34-year-old with MS. So, but menopause has been in the practice from the outset, but it's expanded because my clients have expanded, have grown
Yeah.
with me, have aged with me. So in the past 6 years, yes, I am now in, I went from early perimenopause to very, very late perimenopause. Like my body, my blood work says I'm in menopause, although my cycle can show up, it cannot show up. And my practitioner and my current nurse practitioner and I are titrating up my hormones because my sleep is like the biggest moving target. And insomnia, ladies, without hormones, let me tell you, your doctor will give you a nice prescription for a sleeping pill or a Xanax, but you will not. It's really hard to sleep without the right balance of estrogen
Mhm.
to progesterone because progesterone helps you fall asleep, but estrogen really helps you stay asleep.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that because I actually have a list of questions from one of our female coaches and from some of her
Right.
clients. So this is going to be perfect because um, you're the perfect person to answer this stuff. But what I would like to do is let's start a little more general as to kind of best practices for women, and I think your perspectives on individuals in general around nutrition and training. And let's just start with nutrition in terms of, I mentioned that we had talked kind of paleo diet before. Where are you on the spectrum right now in terms of the recommendations that you make to your female clients?
So I have three Meno laws for fat loss during this time. We need to understand that starting in perimenopause, we become much more insulin resistant. Our cortisol's going up. We get all of a sudden we're like, wow, I've got to like tuck my stomach into my jeans every morning. And our bodies are not going to break down carbs the same way they did before unless you are, lifting super heavy, you're doing at least 10,000 steps a day. But for the average woman that I see in practice, we really have to flip her ratios. She comes to me not very active because she's exhausted from not sleeping all the time. And her carb to protein ratio is far greater. So when I get women to flip the ratios, and get at least 1 gram per pound of her ideal body weight. So let's say a woman's 160, she's 5'3", her current weight is 150, 160, her ideal weight is 115 to 125. So try and get protein at least 115 to 125. Now, most women, grams per day.
Yep.
Most women come to me, I tease them. I'm like, congratulations, you have the protein intake of a dialysis patient that I saw in the hospital.
Totally.
That's how I roast women in my practice. But they're eating 60 grams, 80 grams. They're eating like 900 to 1,000 calories, maybe 1,200 calories. And I'm like, that's not the way. That's a great way to slow your thyroid and your metabolism to a grinding halt. So I do get them to flip the ratios of protein to carbs and still keep fat moderate to low.
Yeah.
The reason is this. A lot of women I see also have a very poor cortisol curve. Either their cortisol is spiking like crazy because they're not metabolizing or detoxing their morning coffee so well anymore. Or, they've got midlife stress. We've got aging parents and teenagers. Good luck with that, women. I mean, it is no freaking joke. I'm right here with you. Or we have rock bottom cortisol because our adrenals are just so exhausted from, handling the stress. And also, if you've gone into menopause, your body flips the switch from an ovarian production of hormones to an adrenal production of hormones. So we do have to manage stress. Eating protein makes us more resilient. When our progesterone and estrogen and testosterone declines, we lose a lot of resiliency. So first thing is, I'm like, build it up physically. Get protein at your meals because number one, protein is metabolically expensive. It takes your body burns more calories trying to digest and absorb protein than it does for your carbs and fats. Number two, raises serotonin and dopamine and keeps that elevated all day. So you can actually have mental focus. A lot of women really struggle with horrible brain fog, with hormonal changes and chronic sleep deprivation. So serotonin and dopamine elevates your neurotransmitters, also fights cravings. It keeps your energy stable so you don't get that 3 p.m. crash and want to face plant into a trough of donuts, right?
Yep.
And coffee. So protein first. High protein. Next, we, as I mentioned, you want to have a greater ratio of protein to carbs. So let's say your protein intake is you're aiming for 115 to 125 grams per day. Okay. So, that means you're getting 40 grams of protein 3 times a day. So it's like 5 ounces of protein at meals, or you can do 4 ounces at meals and then a 3-ounce snack. That means your net carbs, if you're tracking on an app, and I highly recommend you track macros. It's really the only way to get specificity in there.
We talk about it all the time, about the importance, at least, to establish awareness. So we're with you, same page right here. Absolutely.
Yeah, same page. So net carbs should be around 100. So that means if your total carbs, you're getting 40 grams of fiber, you subtract the fiber from your total carb intake. Now, again, 100 is great if you want to cut, you want to lose fat, you're just looking to lose weight and change your body composition. And you can explain this next part better than me. Obviously, if you're lifting or if you're rebuilding your thyroid, your carb allowances may be higher. So these are general ranges. This is not individualized. These are generals. Okay. And step 3 is to have carbs at night, at least a cup of cooked starch with dinner. This could be rice, this could be potatoes, lentils, or beans. This could be quinoa, butternut squash, acorn squash, of course, all the non-starchy veggies as well, turnips, parsnips, plantains. But having carbs at night gives, when paired with a protein and a high fiber vegetable, right, may give you a slight bump in insulin, but remember, insulin tamps down cortisol.
Yeah.
So if you are waking up at night, with low blood sugar, okay, first of all, getting protein at your meals is paramount to controlling that dip in blood sugar at night. And B, if you have, a little carbs with your protein and your and some fat and a starchy veg, you're just going to sleep much better through the night. And that will course correct your longstanding insulin resistance, even adding carbs in. That's the cool part.
Yeah, no. Those are super solid laws that 100%, like I said, align with, I think, the nutritional values that we espouse, through this show and certainly with our clientele. I love just the importance that you place on protein intake, again, energy, blood sugar regulation, cognitive function, neurotransmitter balancing, is like, listen, I think, and this is not just directed at women. This is the nature. This is human nature right now in our society, is so much geared towards quick fix dieting mentalities, that we're doing these things that are further enforcing poor blood sugar regulation, um, to say nothing of orthorexic nutritional behaviors. But at the end of the day, is these seemingly simple nutrition practices of eating a solid chunk of protein, 3 to 4 meals per day spread out throughout the day, so that you can manage your blood sugar levels effectively, so that you can get good quality sleep, so that you can recover, so that you can have good insulin management. Like, these things compound, right? And so it's imperative that these become the fundamental principles. You call them, I love that you call them your Meno laws. That's great. But listen, these are kind of laws for anyone
Yeah.
with respect to the protein intake. I'm assuming, you're good with animal protein, and you certainly recommend the benefits of animal protein to contribute to this protein intake. Is that fair?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I was going to bring that up too. Yes. I get a lot of women, interestingly enough, who have been vegan or vegetarian and say, "Oh my God, I can't sustain my energy on this." And I don't even accept vegans or vegetarians into my practice. I have that specifically on my application form, because I cannot in good conscience take someone's money who I cannot help.
Yeah.
And so, I look at lab values of my clients, and women who are not eating optimal amounts of animal protein at this point are severely anemic. They're nutrient deficient. They're deficient in zinc and iron and ferritin, and their thyroids are just dead, tired, and unhappy. So, animal fats also, we have to remember that the proteins, the saturated fats we find in animal fat, in a really good cut of meat and fresh eggs and fish oils,
Yep.
nourish our ovaries, right? That's a fertility diet. Caviar is a fertility food, avocados as well. And so we are trying, in a world where we're trying to eke out that last bit of hormones from our ovaries, right? I'm trying to get as much juice squeezed from those girls as I can. That's where fats are really important to, they're precursors
Right.
to cholesterol and our hormones. Our hormones are derived from cholesterol. People don't realize that. So we have to make sure that we're eating animals. And, I ideally, yes, grass-fed and finished, but don't let perfect be the enemy of done. I don't eat organic grass-fed meat all the time. I do
Sure.
eat out. I do,
Yep.
it's still beneficial, perfect or no perfect.
No, that's great. I wanted just a little bit of clarity around that, because I do think we make this so much more challenging than it needs to be. And I think one of the common traits that I see with our female clients is the desire um, to show up for anyone and everything in their life, right, at the expense of their own health. And so it's, in my opinion, and I would love obviously to know how you approach this in the conversations that you have, but it's giving our clients, the wonderful women that we work with, the permission to prioritize themselves, the need, right? Helping them understand the need to prioritize themselves by virtue of, you know, the nutritional laws that we're discussing here, right? To talk about physical activity. You mentioned 10,000 steps a day. You mentioned lifting heavy. Like, these are non-negotiable pillars of health. And so how do we help give women permission to start to root into these necessities?
It starts by owning your sacral power. It starts by you really understanding that your gut feelings about your body are right. And I think a lot of women are so gaslit and have been gaslit for so long. where, they say, well, I think something's off with my hormones, right? I'm not sleeping, like my periods are regular, my breasts are tender, I have no libido, vaginal dryness. And the doctors are like, oh no, it's not your hormones,
Right.
because they're maybe not 51 years old. Maybe they're 39 years old or 45 years old. And the doctors say, no, it's not your hormones. But you know what? Here's an antidepressant. Here's a sleep medication. Here's Adderall for your brain fog,
Right.
So I think women have been disconnected for so long and just told, oh, well, that person's a doctor, so they must be right. We're not, it's very uncomfortable to confront a white coat. At the end of the day, we have to get really quiet and say, wait a minute, what is my body telling me? How do I just shut out all the noise for a minute and start dialing into what works best for me, right? And believe me, I personally went through this for a long time because everyone demonized carbs. Even some of my mentors were like, you
Sure.
cannot eat carbs. Let me tell you people something. If I don't eat carbs, I don't sleep. I eat about 160, 170 carbs a day, and that's what I need to lift and sleep. And
Yeah.
no, my body fat is not 20%, but I know what my body needs to run, and I don't give a crap what anyone else tells me. And so it was very interesting because recently I did hire someone to like do my macros and
Yeah.
my weights, right? And her carbs were exactly what I was eating. And I was like, holy shit, that was a real moment for me where I was like, I told you you were right. So, I think prioritizing yourself, as my buddy Will Cole says, let no be your multivitamin.
Yeah.
No
I love
has to
that.
be like, this is the time of no. Now, this is not a personal reflection of me, but I will tell you, for midlife women, this is the highest rate of divorce of any age demographic, because menopause is a second spring, as the Chinese call it. It's an awakening. It's not a surrendering that you're going to be old and invisible. I don't even know where that messaging came from. It is a time in life where women are the most powerful, where we are actually just getting started in our careers because our kids are going to be off to school soon. We get to like really focus on ourselves. And so I think you have to really get clear on A, who you surround yourself with. B, you have to say no a lot more than you say yes at this point. And a lot of women, I do see this intuitively happening. Our friend groups get more selective. We really think about who we're going to spend time with. And we do this by listening to our nervous systems and think, do I feel good after these interactions with this person? Or is this person worth my time?
Hmm.
This really isn't, I'm not seeing a high ROI on these interactions. Or maybe you're in a real gossipy group and you want to revisit that and not, function on that level anymore. So I think it all comes together beautifully, but it starts with you and your body. And if your practitioner gaslights you, my gosh, there's 1,000 others out there. And we could talk about how to find a good one.
Yeah, let's do that for sure. But I appreciate, the permission to say, listen, this is your body, this is your life. Like, you need to root into how you feel, what you want, and stop relegating yourself to what you think are the expectations of you or other people's perceptions, or your perceptions of other people's perceptions, right? And just do what you want to do, and to figure out how to feel good. And that doesn't have to be, looking Instagram model worthy. But just
Yeah.
like, hey, I lift weights because it makes me feel good, because I feel strong, because I'm capable, because it gives me good energy. I eat these foods because it makes me feel good and strong and healthy, and right, think clearly, and all of these types of things.
Can I add one more thing to this too? Is
Please.
I think, and this is what I see a lot with friends or clients, is they sit down and say to their family and their kids especially, mommy is going through menopause, like her monthly periods are ending, and right now I need some grace. Like, don't expect full meals on the table every night. Like, you want to make yourself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but you know what I mean? Like, or I need quiet time at night. I need a little time out. Now, as women have children later, this can be harder if your children are younger, but put yourself in a timeout too. Let your family know, like, hey, I'm not on top of my game. Like, my husband's in finance, and I always say I need at least a 20% margin of error here. don't expect me to always be on top of my A game. If I haven't slept in days, like, no,
Yeah.
I'm off my game. But communicate with your family. Don't expect them to read your mind either. Like, that's a big thing.
Well, we talk about this all of the time with our clients on both sides. It's like there needs to be a level of communication. I mentioned at the very beginning around this support system. It's like we have to communicate to our significant others and to our families about, our expectations, the things that are important to us, the things that we're working on right now, and so that they understand how they play into and what their role is in supporting us. Because obviously with our loved ones, they want to be able to support us, but oftentimes they just don't understand how, right? And so in this particular scenario is like, I need to know if my wife is not up to her quote unquote A game, and which I would anyways. This is the dialogue, normally around, hey, I'm at, I'm at 60%. I need you to pick up the 40% here, right? And vice versa. And so I do and I'm glad you brought that up, because I firmly believe that that level of communication is one of the biggest missing components, perhaps one of the biggest limiting factors to why people have a hard time being successful, is because our significant others, our social support systems, don't understand how they can effectively show up to support us. We're in here, we're doing our diligence to make change, right? And we're learning all of this stuff about what we should be doing, but we're not communicating this to our partners. So they just don't know. They don't know. So they make dinner. I'm like, this isn't going to work for me, or right, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, and I want to get into a little more logistics. I want to make sure we have time for questions, but you mentioned this poor cortisol curve. I mentioned kind of the dieting mentality that we're all rooted in. And so we see a lot of the women that come into our community, we see this poor blood sugar regulation, we see lack of protein intake, we see lack of physical activity in general, and certainly an aversion to, I wouldn't say an aversion to strength training, but I think, the conventional wisdom around doing more boot camp style classes and cardio. I think it's getting better. It's definitely getting better, but there's still this aversion present around true resistance training. With respect to this poor cortisol curve, what have your observations been around, you mentioned women, drinking their coffee in the morning. I see a lot where women are skipping breakfast. They're so busy, quote unquote, busy with the morning routines, getting the kids ready for school, or just doing their own thing. The quote unquote intermittent fasting stuff. How does that play into, what you're working with?
I do see a failure to sustain the high intensity interval training or even just long duration cardio at this point in life. Most women, again, some are really robust. I do see plenty of women with a really good cortisol curve, but more often than not, the cortisol is either spiking like crazy from fasted cardio with a big mug of coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
And carbs will tamp that cortisol down. So we're like, you actually have to eat in the morning to actually lower your cortisol. Or, right, we see women who are so rock bottom. Women who have really rock bottom cortisol, I don't have to convince them to quit cardio because they're just not doing it. And I'm like, hey, how about going for a nice gentle walk outside, exposing your eyes and your brain to the sunlight? Just the natural light outside is spectrum 200 times greater than indoor light, especially now that like LED bulbs are ubiquitous, which just kills me.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, get outside and walk. Everyone can walk, no matter how tired they are, they can walk. And that doesn't feel daunting. Sometimes we get women to start with weights with Pilates strength training. And I do Pilates once a week with a teacher. It's a one-on-one lesson. I can be as sore with a 4-pound weight on my triceps as I can with an 8 or 10-pound weight on my own. So if it's done properly, you really isolate the muscles. There's no group of muscles helping you. You're just working a single muscle at a time. you die. It's a really hard workout, but it's not intense from a cardio perspective. So, I mean, I was really sick with Lyme and mold for a long time, but I could do walking and Pilates. So I'm like, start with Pilates. You'll be able to handle that. And from there, slowly picking up the weights. Now, obviously, a woman who has never strength trained or hasn't for a long time or is exhausted, it can be very intimidating to go into the gym and be like, well, what exactly is a heavy weight?
Right.
For you, it may be starting with 5 pounds. That is fine. For some people, it's starting with their own body weight. I mean, geez, just doing a push-up, the amount of strength it takes to do a push-up, and Lord knows it takes a lot more strength to do a pull-up, core work. There's so much you can do even with body weight, and then build up, because you will get stronger over time. Like, your muscles will build, and then you can start actually adding some weights to your reps. And it's possible at every age. I mean, there are research studies done on people in their 90s who are building muscle mass.
Right.
It's always possible, always.
Hey guys, I want to interrupt this conversation briefly with an exciting announcement. If you're a father and struggling to lose the pounds that have crept on over the years, I understand your challenge. You're juggling a successful career, a loving family, and now you're looking to regain that energy and physique that seems to have slipped away. And that's exactly why I created Prime Fit Operating System. Prime Fit OS is a unique hybrid coaching program designed specifically for men like you. Now, you guys know me, we're not about quick fixes or impossible routines. Instead, we focus on real sustainable change through personalized nutrition and science-driven strength training, all wrapped up in a supportive community with expert guidance directly from me and my 20 years of experience working with men just like you. Imagine mastering your nutrition without restrictive dieting, getting stronger and leaner, and boosting your overall energy, all without overwhelming your already busy schedule. With Prime Fit OS, you're getting more than just a cookie-cutter nutrition and fitness plan. You're embarking on a transformative journey that fits into your life, not the other way around. So, if you're ready to take the first step towards a healthier, leaner, stronger, more energetic, confident, ass-kicking you, join us over at Prime Fit Operating System. Trust me, guys, your family, your career, and most importantly, you will thank you for it. So if you guys are interested in getting started and want to find out more about the program, let's chat. Just head over to primefitos.com/call and grab a time on my calendar. Remember, it's your time to be at your prime. Yes. So the idea around progressive overload is constantly challenging yourself to progress, to force the muscles to adapt by changing the stimulus. So slowly and progressively adding more weight. We've had women start with the TRX strap, and now they're training in the gym 4 or 5 days a week. Brilliant. So I love, you mentioned earlier, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Or done, either or. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's where it's like, we got to do something, and we need to stimulate the muscles to adapt, because we are losing lean muscle tissue, year after year, I think after the age of 30. And what happens, I don't know, you tell me what happens, during menopause.
Yes. Menopause is the time when we lose the greatest amount of muscle in the shortest period of time. We lose bone mass, we lose muscle, we lose gray matter in the brain. This is why I'm a very staunch advocate for bringing in early intervention of bioidentical hormone replacement. Now, obviously this is a piece of the pie. You can't out supplement or out hormone craptastic lifestyle choices. Yeah. If you think you're drinking wine every night and going to not be inflamed or have a good night's sleep or undereat your protein, hormones alone can't do all the heavy lifting. But hormones can be a really powerful adjunct when it comes to optimizing insulin, preventing arterial plaque, optimizing bone density, preventing loss of gray matter and risk of dementia, And also preventing the genitourinary symptoms of menopause, like leaky bladder, vaginal dryness, vaginal atrophy, clitoral atrophy, like all of these real quality of life issues. So, but to your point, yes, it is really important that we don't lose bone, because the largest risk of death and fractures and falls happens in people over 65. A hip fracture can be lethal at this age. So you really do want to lift to optimize your bone density and also your balance, your proprioception. That part's really important too.
Yeah, the obviously, like, the muscle mass lends itself to quality of life long term, in every capacity. We want to be able to support bone density, and you're saying, because of the shift in hormones, women are losing a lot of bone through menopause. So resistance training and spinal loading is going to be able to support that bone loss, to say nothing of just confidence and feeling good and being healthy. When should women be considering bioidentical hormones, and what is that route?
So women can begin perimenopause actually in their 30s, in their late 30s. I am seeing women younger and younger with what's called premature ovarian failure. Such a sad, horrible name for it. But, the ovaries are winding down, right? I'm like, why can't they say they're ovary reacting or something like funny? Why does it have to be so gloom and doom?
Failure,
But,
yeah.
but women I are going into perimenopause younger and younger. I think this is just, there's a huge amount of stress. There's endocrine disrupting chemicals. There's, I think unmanaged trauma as well from childhood really keeps your nervous system dysregulated. And so if you're always in a fight or flight state, the last thing your body wants to do is ovulate and get pregnant. Right. So, and women, you're going to totally relate to this when you hear this, but men, you may also relate because you're witnessing it. When the first half of your cycle, you're Mary Sunshine, and the second half of your cycle, you're like death warmed over, okay? Or the devil, right? That's a time to start getting your hormones checked. If you notice your cycles are like really shortening or really lengthening, or, your PMS just goes from like a day or two to like 2 weeks, that's a really good sign that you need to get your hormones checked. If you're also having these, what I call crime scene periods, where you're having massive clots and heavy, heavy bleeding, mental health changes like severe anxiety or depression, that's usually a sign you are starting perimenopause. And that is due to a real sharp drop in progesterone the last 2 weeks of your cycle, leaving your estrogen really unopposed. And, breast tenderness, bloating, weight gain, cramps, there's just so many symptoms that happen with that. So a lot of doctors, you will go to a traditional doctor, and a traditional doctor would say, well, I'm not even going to bother testing your hormones because they're going to fluctuate so wildly. And that's absolutely accurate. Your hormones are going to fluctuate up to 30% of any given day during perimenopause. Okay. So, but you can absolutely get a baseline for blood work, and you can look at your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone, your LH, your luteinizing hormone. You can look at your AMH, which looks at your ovarian egg reserves. And you can kind of see, where am I in the process, and you want to do this ideally days 19 to 21 of your cycle, right? Mm-hmm. When you're ovulating. If you don't know if you're ovulating, or you're not ovulating with both ovaries, right? You may ovulate one side, not the other. So you can do a ovulation prediction kit at home, where you just pee on a stick, and then you get your blood tests taken within 5 to 7 days of a positive ovulation. I also use the Dutch test in my practice. This is an at-home dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. This tells me, how you're metabolizing your hormones, but also it can give me an idea of your sex hormones and say, okay, like, are you on the lower range? You may not be deficient in testosterone yet, and your estrogen's okay, but your progesterone's really rock bottom. Some doctors will also just treat without even testing. They're like, I know your symptoms. I've seen this 1,000 times. Just take progesterone the last 2 weeks of your cycle. You can also, if you're in very early perimenopause, you can try taking chaste tree or Vitex throughout the month, and that will raise your progesterone. It tries to eke out a better ovarian production of progesterone. So you can try that. Some women will use progesterone creams. Those are okay. Some women will take it, in drops and low dosages. There are you can find in full script dispensaries, there are products like that. I really recommend you work with a practitioner. And the shortest distance between two lines is taking oral progesterone. This is bioidentical prometrium that you can get in a pharmacy. You don't even have to get compounded. I mean, mine was $4 a bottle.
Yep.
And it's a really, really nice solution to start introducing it. And then if you notice, step 2 is, well, I sleep really great the weeks I take progesterone, and the weeks I don't take it, I don't sleep. That's usually a sign you kind of need it all month long. And progesterone's great. It protects the uterine lining. But guess what? We have progesterone receptors all over the body. It affects our nervous system. It affects our digestive system. It affects how we make muscle and burn fat. So even if you have a lot of women who've had hysterectomies, and they say, well, my doctor says I don't need progesterone because I don't have a uterus. That's absolutely not true. There are 1,000 other benefits to progesterone, and getting the ratios of hormones correct is very, very important. So how do you find, let's say you go to your regular GYN or your general practitioner, and they say, I'm not going to test you. You're crazy. It can't be your hormones. And you're just gaslit. Or they'll say, here's a birth control pill or the IUD, which, by the way, is not going to treat your perimenopause or menopausal symptoms. It may control your out of control bleeding, but so will taking progesterone. So if your doctor gaslights you and you want to find a new doctor, you can call your local compounding pharmacy and say, what hormone literate doctors are running hormone prescriptions through your pharmacy? And they'll be like, oh, we love Dr. Smith down the street, or we love Dr. Appleby, or whom. So you can also get prescriptions in some states from naturopathic physicians.
Yeah.
Nurse practitioners can also write prescriptions for hormones. I mean, that's my go-to as a nurse practitioner for my hormones. So, there's so many ways to get support. And if you think, yes, it's out of pocket, it's more expensive to go to a practitioner out of insurance, that is also true. But to me, it will save you a lot of time and money down the line, and you get your quality of life back.
Yeah. I mean, what's a good night of sleep worth to you, right?
About
So
$1 million.
yeah, exactly. I think
$1 million.
we can appreciate that so much as we get older.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, though, it's like you need to be testing to know, how to treat and the amount of progesterone to leverage and be with a qualified practitioner who's going to do their diligence to be able to support you long term as things continue to change. And that's one of the biggest things that we try and incorporate into our community here, is to align with wonderful practitioners like you and physicians, to be able to support our clientele so that, it's so much beyond, yes, the nutrition and the training is important, but when we're dealing with, hormonal dysregulation, it can really dampen the entire situation of helping you accomplish what you're here to accomplish. And so I think this is a good time to jump into some of the questions that I have from our community members, because it's a lot of touching on what you just talked about. So I think we covered this, but what to do when your doctor tells you that your hormones are in the quote unquote normal range, but you're still having symptoms of perimenopause?
That's right. So most doctors rely on serum, just blood tests for your hormones. That doesn't mean that, it can mean they were normal on that given day. It depends on what day of the month you took your blood test. Number 2, hormones don't really necessarily do a deep dive. Some doctors will do serum is the gold standards. Yes, and right. You can also do there's saliva testing,
Right.
which looks at tissue saturation. There's the Dutch test. Some doctors do 24-hour urine collection. They'll look at urinary metabolites of hormones. So you can say to your doctor also, and I write about this on my Instagram channel. I have entire posts and feeds. It's in my book too. But basically, you can say to your doctor, look, I have read the research online. I have looked at published medical research. I know that my body would benefit on hormones. Would you please give me a try for 3 months? Let me try some hormones. This is a real quality of life issue. I can't sleep at night. I'm hot flashing all the time. And even though my blood is normal, I'm still having all the symptoms. So how about it, pal? What do you say we partner together? It's really hard for a doctor to say no when you're putting it that way. But some doctors have literally said to my clients, and this breaks my heart, they will raise their hands, say, if you even talk about hormones, I can't continue to have you in my practice, which I'm like, it's horrific. So, go with your gut. If you're like, this doctor may put me on hormones, but then has no idea how to manage them down the line, because believe me, ladies, you do need to titrate them up as you go through perimenopause, or if you're on birth control and you want to start adding in bioidentical progesterone because you're not sleeping, then you need someone who's eventually going to titrate you off the pill when you're no longer using it for birth control, right? So if your gut is, this is the person who may be able to get me on hormones and then I'm going to take my biz elsewhere, like, you're free to do that. Medicine is a business like any other. This is your body and your life. So give yourself permission. A lot of my clients say, all right, well, I'm just going to go to my GYN for my annual exams, and then I'll hire a functional medicine doctor to handle my hormones.
Yeah.
That's what I do. I mean, it's a joke what my GYN,
That's what a lot of our clients do. Is we've just got a great network of naturopathic physicians and nurse practitioners here in Arizona, and that's exactly it. It's like we have to be more progressive about this stuff.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned birth control. Is birth control ever a good option, in your opinion, when dealing with perimenopausal symptoms?
So the problem with birth control is that it's derived from oral synthetic estrogen, which has to be metabolized through your liver and your gut. And in some cases, it's also has synthetic progestins or progestogens. So these are designed to, turn your hormones into a desert wasteland. So you can't ovulate, you can't get pregnant. What happens is when you give a perimenopausal woman with declining estrogen and progesterone something that's going to suppress it further, she can start hot flashing, having vaginal dryness, depression, severe anxiety, especially severe anxiety. Why is this? Because only bioidentical progesterone hits up the GABA receptors in the brain, whereas synthetic progestogens suppress them. There's also a much higher risk of clot and stroke with synthetic oral estrogens, and there is a risk for cancer. There, I said it. It's true. I see it in the research. I have no personal bias. I don't think that young women should be, I understand the realities of birth control, but ideally, if you can do a barrier method or really make sure, gut health is in check if you've got a young daughter or you yourself are on birth control, like eventually, it does take its toll on a woman's body. And so if you have been on the pill though, or an IUD, and you're like, I am not disrupting the apple cart right now. A lot of women go on it in their 20s or 30s because they're having these hemorrhagic periods and horrible cramps. No worries there. What you can do is you can start adding in bioidentical progesterone, as I mentioned, and keep, at some point you can look at your FSH and LH, right? And your AMH. And at some point, when you are ready to come off either the pill or the IUD, you can transition over into bioidentical hormones. But the bioidentical hormones are given at a fifth of the dose of a birth control pill. So a good hormone literate practitioner is going to put you on the highest possible dose of bioidentical estrogen so you don't hot flash, you don't experience vaginal dryness. It's about a 2-week transition period when you come off the pill. You should know that, but ride it out, because staying on the pill forever is really not a great option for you.
You mentioned how a lot of women are undereating to a degree. They're undereating protein. We see a lot of they're undereating maybe during the week, but overeating, over drinking on the weekends. There's massive fluctuations. With respect to weight loss, how do these hormone imbalances affect women's ability to lose weight? I guess especially during menopause.
So what most women don't realize is that prior to menopause, testosterone is the predominant hormone in a woman's body. So about 25% of women, if you have PCOS, insulin resistance, your testosterone can be too high. Mm-hmm. For about 25 to 30%, testosterone is too low. And then there's a good chunk, 45 to 50%, kind of lie in the middle where the testosterone's fine. So first of all, the decline in testosterone and DHEA can disrupt a woman's ability to lose body fat and put on muscle. And ladies, please understand, when we are talking about putting you on bioidentical testosterone, it is a microdose. It is not the physiologic dose that you want in your 20s. It is certainly not the physiologic dose that you would see in an athlete like Michael Phelps or Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're not going to turn into a big hairy beast with muscle and grow a beard. That's not happening. If you get pellets, you might have that problem, because pellets are an incredibly high dose of hormones that is often the women I see have, for the most part, I would say 95% of the women I see who have done pellet therapy have a horrific time with 10-pound weight gain, hair on the chin, hair lost from the head, and a very over aggressive sex drive, very irritable, very unhappy. So, and then the joy is you get to wait 6 months till they fully dissolve and leave your system. So I don't recommend pellets.
Interestingly, we just had a conversation for our men's group last night, and same deal. I would strongly discourage pellet usage in any hormonal capacity.
And there's very few research papers done. I called out, there's a well-known doctor who was talking all about the benefits of pellet therapy. I said, where are the research studies? She listed me the names of the authors. I looked, it was like I had to request access to the articles, and guess what? They never sent the articles. So I was like, you know what? If you're not transparent and there's very little published research, I'm not buying it or ascribing to it.
They're just big money makers.
Oh, it's such a big money maker. And a lot of times they're in med spas. They're not even given by qualified doctors, which is even more terrifying. So yes, you've got to get regulated testosterone, which, by the way, is not FDA approved for women unless it's an off-label use. So that is something you do have to get at a compounding pharmacy, or if you want to get it at a regular pharmacy, you can have your doctor write you a prescription for men's testosterone, but at 1/10 of the dose. And that way you can probably get it covered under insurance. So that's a nice hack. But yeah, so back to your question, the decline in estrogen and progesterone, also all of it can make you retain water, put on, 3 to 5 pounds of puff or water weight. Some women gain 10 pounds, in a month or two with just the high cortisol, high circulating insulin levels, chronic inflammation. So it really does a number on your ability to lose fat. And again, the way to counteract that is all the pieces of the pie, right? Diet, activity, including a lot of walking and some strength training, supplements as indicated, hormones as indicated, stress management, sleep, healthy relationships and joy, all of those things have to be part of it. Mindset work. It's
Yeah.
not just one thing, but yes, hormones can dramatically change a quality of life for a woman who hasn't been sleeping in years, and you put her on hormones and like she gets sleep that night. It's not complicated.
Right. But yeah, and I think that's, in my understanding, the most frustrating thing for women is when they feel like the hormones are the biggest limiting factor because they're doing all of the things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm eating in this calorie deficit, and I'm, exercising, and I'm trying to optimize my sleep. And this is where it's very relevant. It's like, hey, I mean, this is a situation where we need to test and get you with the qualified practitioner so that they can support on this end of the spectrum.
Yes, and I will say this, listen, the thyroid gland is chock full of estrogen receptors. So I do see a lot of subclinical hypothyroidism
Yeah.
in my menopause ladies. Guess what? That gets fixed when you optimize your gut function. If your gut function is not optimized, your thyroid won't be either. You need to diet up and stop with the low calorie dieting and start bumping up your carbs, because that converts T4 to T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. So you've got to actually slowly diet up. Don't go from 1,200 calories to 1,800 overnight. You've got to slowly increase your activity, and increase your calories, 100 calories a day for a week or two, then increase
Yep.
another 100 calories slowly until your appetite. Trust me, when you're lifting heavy, you're going to have a good appetite. That will not be an issue for you.
No, you know what? I'm really grateful that you brought that up because it's certainly a very important conversation and practice that we have with clients, both men and women, of when women find themselves in these situations where they're to some degree perpetually undereating. There might be some low thyroid function. And it's like, listen, where do we go from here? You're not as lean as you want to be. You're not as healthy as you want to be. You're already, you're only eating like 1,100, 1,200 calories. You're overly restricting yourself, and you've been doing this for a long time. So where do you expect to go? We can't realistically or ethically drop your calories lower. And even if we do, then what happens? You're still backing yourself into a corner. And so the only logical decision then is to help your body become a better burner, become a bigger engine by virtue of, like you said, slowly ramping up calories. And we often do that in like 25-gram of carb increments. So you just add 25
Mm.
grams of carbs, that's 100 calories, like you said, every day for a week or 2 weeks, see how you're feeling, right? And then progressively increase from there as you're improving your physical activity levels, getting more steps in, as you're committing to more structured strength training, as you're eating more whole foods, as you're working on, by virtue of eating more whole foods and supplementation, you're supporting healthier gut function. It's this progressive cycle, right? That we're changing a lot of things in a really realistic fashion so that we can get you to the point where, like, we have women who, they're eating 1,800, 2,000, 2,200, 2,500 calories. And like, I feel so good. I'm training hard. I'm recovering. And then if and when you do decide, okay, I'd like to maybe lean out a little bit, well, then look at the margins that we have to work with now to
Yeah.
do it realistically without sacrificing your hormonal function in the process.
Oh, that is gorgeous. Yes. I hope all of you who are listening, I mean, this is gold, what Ben just said just now. It's really important to fuel your body. And to me, it's a great joy. Like, I find tracking my macros is a beautiful form of self-care, because I'm like, wow, I actually have not eaten enough today. What a high class problem to have. What a beautiful way to repair any disordered eating, or if you've had an unhealthy relationship with food, or you've been just terrified to eat because you're afraid to gain weight. This is a wonderful problem to have. And most of my women say, wow, I can't even eat all that I'm supposed to eat a day, and I'm
Yeah.
still losing weight. And I'm like, of course you are. Because yeah, your body, when you're going through perimenopause, your body's going to pack on fat by design. Why? Because fat is what helps produce hormones. It's a precursor to hormones. Your ovaries are like, please juice me up, baby. Give me some more fat. I need it.
Yeah.
So, again, the way to do that is, like you said, like adding in really nutrient dense, some whole food macros. And also to finally answer your question about weekend warriors, it's much more ideal to have your calories consistent just every day. And so, yes, if you go out and have a big meal, a dinner out can easily be 1,000 calories. So the next day, yes, you will have to be in a deficit to compensate. But it's really looking at your food day to day, and it's also looking at your alcohol, ladies. I mean, gosh, one martini can be 250 calories and a bad hangover and night's sleep. Like, is it worth it? There's so many adaptogenic drinks. You could do a CBD drink. There are drinks with magnesium in them. Like, there's so many other ways to relax. I find just breathing and being really centered in my
Yeah.
intentions every day is enough. Like, I don't, I joked to a friend of mine. I'm like, I said, I don't need alcohol. Like, I'm just as funny. He's like, are you really?
Are you though? I mean,
Are you? I was like, hey, come on. So, but yeah, I find it wrecks my focus the next day. I always need a nap the day after a drink. I'm like, well, that is so anti-productive,
no, me
not
too. No,
helpful.
100%. I think as we get older and it just comes with this level of confidence and being okay with like, this is who I am. This is what I need to fuel my best. And, kudos to my wife, who she loves you and loves your emails, by the
Aw.
way. And I really wanted her to pop in to say hello,
Oh,
but
she should.
I know she
Oh,
just got the kids to school a little bit. She let them sleep in a little bit because
nice.
they had some late sports last night. But anyways, but kudos to her because she's like largely completely eliminated alcohol for the past, I don't know, 6 months or so. And she's just like, just don't need it. I don't want it. It doesn't make me feel good. Especially, my wife's 40 and where is she? No, she's 42. But I think there's like a lot of this like wine culture of like cocktails all the time, and it's not
Yes.
helping.
Let me tell you, okay, I think when we talked about like earlier, like how to really tend to yourself, how to put those boundaries in place, there's two things that I've noticed really differentiated me or helped me understand who my people were. And one of them is like, who is just incessantly gossiping and thinking small-minded talk. I have no
Yeah.
time or patience for that. I'm not going to say I'm perfect and I've never gossiped, but like, if that's the primary bedrock for your friendship, that is not a healthy bedrock. And number two is, yeah, just the wine culture. Like, people who are just heavy, heavy drinkers are usually not my people because we have nothing in common. Like, our lifestyles are so different. And I find mentally, it's just, if you drink, and believe me, I'd be a smoking alcoholic if I had my druthers bent. I would.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. But I love how it relaxes me and all that stuff. But I find you're just on a different level energetically. And I don't judge you. If you want to get your drink on, please be my guest. But we're probably not going to hang out a lot in real life. It's just not going to happen because I don't put myself in those situations. I mean, there's a mom in my town who, every Labor Day, she's like, oh, thank God the kids are in school, and start serving mimosas at 9 in the morning, the first day of
Right.
school. And she kept inviting me and I would never show up. I was like, I'm busy. I'm not drinking at 9 in the morning. So it's not that I look down at it. I'm just like, okay, it's just not I'm not in alignment with the situation. So not a fit for me. I'm not a fit for you either. You're not going to think I'm fun either.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Totally. It's awesome
but
though, like just along those lines of like the identity shift, right? And
yes.
we have a group of guys like tomorrow morning we call it an executive ruck. So we bunch of hard charging dudes here in Phoenix, like we meet up and we go do a hike with weight on our pack. It's like in lieu of meeting up for happy hour and doing drinks on Friday nights. It's like none of us have interest. We're going to go to bed early. We're going to
Yeah.
get up Saturday morning. We're going to train, spend time with our families, go be physically active. And I think that it's just giving yourself permission, to accept who you want to become and live into those values and principles.
And really that is the best high to me, is being physically active with friends.
Yeah.
That to me is like the most endorphin producing high that you can get.
It's the best business meeting I could ever hope for. And Christina does it with her friends. Like, so she's in a bunch of women's networking groups and they're like, let's meet for coffee. She's like, meet me at the trailhead. We're going for a hike. And then they go exercise and they talk shop, and everyone's like, this was so much better than sitting around, drinking shitty coffee drinks and whatever. So I just want to
Yes.
empower all of our listeners to be okay. Like, set your next meeting and do your phone calls while you're walking or meet up in person, but go be physically active.
Yes.
Okay, I want to wrap it up here. I just have a couple more questions that I need to hit on. Uh, so how does perimenopause and menopause affect brain health? And I think you kind of already covered this, but lack of concentration, forgetfulness, ADD symptoms, heart health, blood
Mhm.
sugar regulation, joints. It's kind of a
Mhm.
big one, but
Yeah, so testosterone, progesterone, and estrogen all hit up target receptor sites in the brain. They affect different areas of cognition, memory, learning, and mood. So all hormones, very important to be on those. I'm going to throw, some people say, what about DHEA? Yes, DHEA is important for some people. Pregnenolone is important. It's really bio-individual. For those of you who don't know, DHEA and pregnenolone are kind of the parent hormones from which progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone are derived. So some people like to start at the very top. My training was under naturopathic physicians who's, we just started with that, just went straight to the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA. But that being said, yes, all of them can have a dramatic effect on hitting up, your neuroreceptor sites. So do you have, before you start taking ADD meds, before you fall under that ADD diagnosis, number one, fix your gut. Okay. Leaky gut is going to equal a leaky brain. So this is why I do GI map stool testing in my practice as well, because a lot of women with the decline in estrogen and progesterone develop a leaky gut. It changes in their absence, you will lose some of your mucosal lining of the small intestine. And you can develop a lot of inflammation, a leaky gut, gluten sensitivities, food sensitivities in general. And low stomach acid invites H. pylori and a lot of bacterial overgrowth to populate your gut. So we have to kill off the overgrowth, heal up that leaky gut, and then, get you on some digestive enzymes with hydrochloric acid to act as a future firewall. So number one, heal your gut, right? I'm amazed at the women whose brain fog resolves when we heal the gut.
yep.
Number two, is your diet, right? Really make sure that you're cutting out wine and really being conscientious of whether or not you're detoxing your caffeine. If you're having one cup of coffee and still hot flashing and having insomnia and night sweats, it's time to cut it out. There's a very high correlation between hot flashes and risk of dementia and heart attack. So that's because it's the dangers of an estrogen deficiency is what's causing the hot flashes. So number three, get your hormones titrated. Once you've done those steps and you're still having, ADD, then you can think about, neurofeedback or versus medication. There's many paths for ADD and ADHD treatment, but I guarantee if you've never had it and all of a sudden you're diagnosed in midlife, it's really a hormone deficiency and some gut inflammation.
Yeah, those are super solid points right there, all around gut health, food quality, supplementation, brain health, and the relationship between all of them is huge, and a lot of stuff that we talk about in our practice as well. Personally, I mean, I had H. pylori. That was what got me into, nutrition 20 years ago. And so I can absolutely resonate with that, with the role of digestive enzymes, of HCl,
Yeah.
and everything thereafter. So so good. Esther, you've got a number of books. Like what's relevant and most important right now where people can find out more about you?
So I have a gift for your listeners. That is my menopausal metabolic meal plan. It's 2 weeks of recipes and meal ideas to just kickstart. If you're like, I don't even know what to eat, I don't know how to start getting my calories and macronutrients in, just download it. It's free. You go to estherblum.com/recipes. So that's
Great.
ESTHERBLUM.com. That will also get you on my email list where you'll get weekly love letters from me on the science and the benefits of hormones and menopause and how to deal with body changes and all the good things. And then come hang with me on Instagram at Gorgeous Esther. And that's where I make a lot of fun but educational reels for you on all the topics. And I respond, unless you're asking me personalized medical advice. I don't give personalized medical advice, but general questions, I respond to almost all of them myself. So that's a great platform to kind of come and understand what's happening to your body and to know that you're not alone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And like I said, my wife is I mean, I'm obviously a huge fan too, but my wife's such a fan of your weekly newsletters. So
Thank you.
go ahead, ladies, go get that recipe guide, sign up for Esther's, obviously she's a wealth of information. So sign up for her email list so you can continue getting science-driven, relevant, and applicable information that you're not getting anywhere else. You've been doing this a long time, and it's one of the things I respect the most about you. And I know, it takes a special kind of person, I think, to stick it out in this type of industry. And so I just commend you on that and have a tremendous amount of appreciation and respect for everything that you're doing. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that knowledge and wisdom with our audience. Super grateful for you, and I'll look forward to connecting with you in person here in a couple weeks.
That sounds awesome.
All right, take care, Esther. Talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening, and if you found this content valuable, here are 4 ways I can help you in your nutrition journey for free. 1. Grab a free copy of my Fat Loss Fix Guide at fatlossfixguide.com. 2. Join my free group at smartnutritionmadesimple.com. 3. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at smartnutritionmadesimpletv.com. 4. Leave a 5-star rating and positive review so that we can gain access to more nutrition experts ready to share their knowledge with you and ultimately help more people make smart nutrition simple.